Hey guys, Comic Boom here to talk about my top 50 sentimental comic books in my collection. Alex, the Comic Hoarder, has this this challenge to all us YouTubers to put forward our top 50 comic books in our collection. And of course, it's open to us to interpret that top 50 however we like. Alex at Comic Hoarder, I encourage you to check out his channel. It's a great channel. And I appreciate the fact that he's doing this, and I'm watching all these videos from my fellow YouTubers that are talking about their top 50 comics, and it's top whatever 50 you like. For me, it's not just about, I'm doing my top 50 sentimental comics, and by that I mean the comic books I'm going to share with you. If it was not for them, I would not be a comic collector. I would not be collecting comic books as I have been for this is my... Well, I think I was 6.5 or 7 years old. So I'm 52 now. So do the math. I mean, good Lord. What is that? 43 years, 44 years. Ooh, good Lord. More than that. Anyways, I'm an oldie. I'm 45 years of collecting comics, reading comics. And I love the fact when I put this top 50 together, what I really enjoyed about putting it together was just how much I discovered that I really did collect what I loved, and I've always collected what I have loved. And as I got older and became more of a speculator and became more tainted by adulthood, in many ways I began to collect some things, comic books that I just plain didn't like. And so what this top 50 has made me do, I am pleased to say, is that I now have a greater appreciation for what brought me into comic books. And it's had an impact on my pull list, and I've drastically dropped many comics off my pull list, and I've added more independent lines that remind me more of the comic books of my youth, the passion that got me into comic books. But in any event, I'm saying that because a few of these might be key comics. Some of them are key comics, but that's purely by fluke and by accident. Some of these, if they have any monetary value, great. Some of them may not, but I can do a separate video to address my top 50 and try to focus on value if that's what people would want. That's just not very fun because there's an awful lot of I've been collecting a long time. I have a lot of key collector comics, which frankly, the stories suck. I mean, probably about 90% of Marvel keys are awful stories. I mean, they just suck. But I have them. But they're not good. They're not memorable. Not to me, anyway. So they just don't mean much to me. They're good to have, and they occasionally might bring back a fling here, but I just don't care about them, and I don't talk about them, and because I'm not a Marvel zombie. I'm a DC comic collector guy. I collect mostly DC, and that's going to be reflected in my top 50 list. Without further ado, though, let me start off by being a little bit of a hypocrite by saying that the top 50, number 50 on my list is What If? What If? That's right, Marvel's What If. The funny thing is, so here I am in 1976, 1977. I start collecting comic books, and I bring back this pile of Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes. It started a love for DC Comics that I've always had. But then lo and behold, my first exposure to Marvel really was some old Fantastic Four and What If? What If was a series that started around 1977, ran through 1982, 83, I think, 84, something like that. And my first exposure, for example, to the death of Gwen Stacy, I mean, it was in a What If story. I didn't know, did Gwen Stacy died? I remember the What If story more than I remember the actual story, because my first exposure to Marvel Comics were largely in the What If stories. And I mean, it was just fantastic. And What If Wolverine had killed the Hulk? These are my two favorite What If stories, by the way. That's why I'm showing them. I got the whole collection of What If, but of course, so I'm cheating a little bit here, but it doesn't really matter. Number 50, man, are What If. I love What If, and it was my first exposure to Marvel, and the best Marvel stories are What If, and I'm so glad that Marvel is bringing that on Disney Plus. to get what if stories, because I really think it's going to draw more people to the hobby of comic books. And a lot of those stories, frankly, I think are going to be seen as frankly being better than the actual stories in mainstream DC, in mainstream Marvel continuity. So good for Disney Plus for doing that. I loved it as a comic book, and I'm sure people are going to love it as a Disney Plus series, okay? So that's number 50. So number 49. Number 49, Batman versus the Incredible Hulk. This is the great big, these are the bulking DC and Marvel present for $2.50 back in the day. I love this. Now, why did I love this? Now, I can't believe this happens to be on the spec list. Apparently, this sucker's worth $250 if you can believe it. I have it in, I don't know, this is probably in a, I'm guessing this is probably in an 8 condition, whatever. But the reason why this is on my list is not because it's a key book, but because I was sick in the hospital, and when this came out, which is in, because I got it was in this came out in the fall of 1981, and now, actually it's, my sister almost died. Well, we had a disease run through our household, and it was a mononucleosis, and my sister almost died in the hospital, and I didn't know that at the time. And then all of a sudden, I came down with being sick. I got mononucleosis of the pancreas, and here I am. I'm 12 years old at the time. I'm in the hospital, and I didn't realize that my sister had almost died. I found that out years later when my parents told me how serious it was and how desperate they were. I was actually kind of pissed off that I didn't know more about what was going on at the time than I did. But in any event, I'm in the hospital, and my mom brings me this comic book. She bought this in the hospital gift shop. Now, isn't that funny how times change, right? I mean, you could buy comic books in a gift shop in any random hospital. You can even buy this sucker. And boy, I read this. This kept me. I was in the hospital for about a week, and I was fine. But this comic, I will never forget it. I absolutely love it, and I always cherish it. I always took care of it. I've never wrapped it. Since 1981. It's never been wrapped. It's never been bagged and boarded. Why? None of my. I got like you'll see in the back there. I got a lot of famous first editions. I got a lot of these bulky things. I don't like them in terms of size, and I've never bagged and boarded them. I just don't care. Even this one, who would pay $250 for this? Anyways, it's worth more than that to me because I love it, but I always go back and reread it again every now and then, and I just keep it in great shape. But I love it. It's a great series. Number 49 on my list. All right, number 48 on my list is All-Star Squadron, number 1. I got all the issues of All-Star Squadron. I love it. I was always a lover of history, and one great thing about All-Star Squadron is that it dealt with World War II, and I learned about Eleanor Roosevelt, who gave a speech at the end of, I believe, All-Star Squadron number 1 here, and I learned about, it got me fascinated in the military history. I would grow up to I was a professional student for a while, and one of my degrees is in history, military studies in particular, and it all delves back into my collection of All-Star Squadron comics, which I absolutely love to this day. I love All-Star Squadron, and I love to see All-Star Squadron issues. Some of the issues of All-Star Squadron are on the spec list. This delved off into Infinity Incorporated, which was sort of like the next generation of legacy heroes. I mean, you guys think that the idea of legacy existed way back in the mid to late 80s. The idea of legacy in comic books and legacy characters. Infinity Incorporated is a great series. It's not on my top 50, but it's definitely something that is spun off from All-Star Squadron. A lot of goodness came from All-Star Squadron that is still here with us comic collectors to this day. Absolutely loved it. Now, number 47. Number 47 on my list. 47 on my list is The Incredible Hulk. Now, what is this really? This is actually a reproduction. This is a French reproduction, but it was published by a French company in English of Incredible Hulk 180 and 181. And it also contains the origin of the Hulk. And so it contains the origin of the Hulk and the first appearance of Wolverine and Wendigo and whatever in Incredible Hulk. Absolutely love this. Now, funny thing about this, I got this. I can't even remember when I first got this. This thing was originally published in 1978. So I would have probably have gotten this around 1979, and I even got there's even the publishing company is called Les Editions Heritage Incorporated. Les Editions Heritage Incorporated, and they publish out of Quebec. And this actually is I think this is one of the first reprints of Incredible Hulk issues 180 and 181. And nobody talks about this. It's not on any spec list or anything, but it ought to be. Anyways, I have it. It's in not bad condition, but this is my first exposure to Hulk 180 and 181. I didn't know those. All I knew is that this was an awesome issue because of this new character called Wolverine that was so cool that Hulk defeated. And Wolverine was a bad guy, and I absolutely loved it. And what's funny about it is this. Now, there was one disadvantage of the fact that I was exposed to this and I own this for over 40 years, and that is the fact that I have had opportunities going back over the last 4 decades to pick up Hulk 180 and 181 for cheap. I have had lots of opportunities. I never bought them because why would I want to buy them if I already have the story? Because to me, it was always about the story. I already have this story. I got it reprinted here. Why would I want to buy Hulk 181? Because when I was younger and I saw Hulk 180, 181, I would never need to buy it because I would page through it and I would say, oh, I've read that already. I got that in here. Now, of course, now that I'm older and I'm a speculator, I'm thinking, what was I thinking? But when I was younger, it didn't matter, right? When I was younger, it was about the story. It's like I already got the story. I don't need to get the original issues. I already got it. Plus, it's nice. It's better. It's nice and reproduced here. It's in better shape. Why would I want to get the comics, right? Anyways, but this has always had a special place in my collection because of that. And in my view, this is just as valuable as Hulk 180 and 181, even though, of course, everybody would disagree with me on that. But in any event, all right, so continuing on, number 40, coming in at number 46, Gold Key Star Trek number 2. Now, this is the Canadian variant with the 15-cent sticker on it. Now, but at the time when I got this, I was just thought it was cool because I love Star Trek. I got this. I was about 14 years of age. So that would have been about 1984. A buddy of mine, a friend of the family, literally dropped off a box that was straight from a farmer's attic. And it's that kind of story. It happened to me. I know what it feels like to get comic books dropped off that were in an attic. And a lot of them were Lone Ranger, Rio Bravo, John Wayne, the Rat Pack, That Darn Cat, a slew of Disney comics, all with the photo covers on it, and all from the 50s, as early as the mid 1940s, all the way up to the late 1960s, and this was one of the later ones, and yeah, and now, what's interesting about this is it got me into Star Trek comics, and this is Gold Key Star Trek number 2. Now, apparently on the census, and I just discovered this recently, there's only 1 or 2 on the census. The highest graded copy on the census, I think, is an 8.5 of this Canadian, because normally it's an American version, it's 12 cent. This is the 15-cent rare photo on the back. Sorry about the reflection there. But in any event, I figured this thing is probably there's a lot of crinkles along the spine, so I would probably put this at an 8, maybe it could be an 8.5, but so I wish it was a 9.8, but it's not, but it's really cool. I'm glad that I have it in my collection, and it's always held a special place in my heart, and was the first Star Trek comic that I ever owned, and I've gotten DC, Marvel, all those other runs. I got all of them as well. Great comic to have in my collection. Now, number 45 on my list. Action Comics number 775, Whatever Happened to Truth, Justice, and the American Way. This is a story that was written by Joe Kelly, art by Doug Mankey. I've always loved this comic book because it's Superman who's taking on essentially the elite. And I love this story. And as I said, this is sentimental. This gets to the heart of who Superman is, that you don't have to be a killer. You don't have to take a life. You don't have to be, you know, all the drama and all the cool, and you can be a sarcastic, smart-mouthed villain, but at the end of the day, or smart-mouthed, even sarcastic good guy or anti-hero, but at the end of the day, you're still just a piece of human garbage who likes to hurt others. But it's cool. It's cool in our society to be that way, as long as you end up doing the right thing in the end. It doesn't matter if while getting there you were a complete jerk. This is a great comic. There's even there was a cartoon, a DC animated cartoon that was made on this, based on this, and it's great. I love it. It's worth checking out because you can always take the high ground. Superman shows that you can always take the high ground, do the right thing, and he makes the so-called smart-ass elite look like the jerks that they are. Great comic. Now, coming in at number 44 is Superman Beyond. 2 of 2. Superman Beyond. Now, this was during Final Crisis. Final Crisis as a series was generally, I'm not a huge fan of Final Crisis. It was written by Grant Morrison. It's a very divisive series in that it's probably aged. It's gotten some love by many writers will reference Final Crisis as if it was some sort of like magnum opus. It really wasn't. It was, generally speaking, Final Crisis. It had a good overall theme to it, but it was a narrative mess, and it was a very bad combination of art and narrative, and it didn't work, and it just didn't work. But in any event, Final Crisis, Batman or Superman Beyond 3D issue 2 of 2. This one had Superman battling the sort of vampiric monitor, evil monitor, that ultimately Superman defeats at the end. And at the end, this is on my list because I thought it was cool. And believe me, out of all the comics I've read of Superman, this actually had a very powerful theme that Superman is the narrative, that in every story there is a Superman. In every story, Superman is evident and prevalent, and he exists in all cultures, but just in different names and in different forms. But there's always a Superman. And there's always a Superman, especially if it's a final crisis in the battle, at the end battle to end all time, to save the multiverse. Superman is always there. And at the end, just when Superman apparently everything's in metaphor here in this story, but there's Superman's tombstone at the end. There's a tombstone at the end, and on the tombstone, it says "to be continued," meaning that Superman fights a never-ending battle. He fights the never-ending battle, and that's what makes it so cool. Great comic. So read Superman Beyond 3D issues 1 and 2. It is essential, by the way, to read those 2 issues to understand Final Crisis, one of the criticisms of the series, but that's another story. In any event, I love this. Great part of my collection. I quite enjoy this. Coming in at number 43, Superman issue 330. I love this issue. My favorite Superman artist of all time, and my second favorite artist of all time, is Kurt Swan. My favorite is Darwin Cook. Second favorite artist was Kurt Swan. And this story it always holds a special place in my heart because I was a huge Superman fan. Superman is hands down my favorite overall superhero. My favorite DC character overall is Cassandra Cain, but Superman always holds a special place in my heart. This is one where finally we got an explanation. I was so excited we finally got an explanation as to why people don't understand why they can't figure out that Clark Kent is Superman. It's because, by the way, as is explained in here, that Superman uses unconsciously, he uses super hypnosis, which is magnified through the lenses of his glasses, that whenever he looks at somebody, he subconsciously gives them a post-hypnotic suggestion to see Clark Kent differently than how they see Superman. So, and he even at one point in the issue, he had one artist draw what they think Clark Kent looks like versus what they think Superman looks like, and Clark Kent looks more mild-mannered. He's smaller postured, etc., etc. And what's interesting about it is that what often happens is that Clark Kent looks bigger when he has his back to you, And the reason why he looks bigger is that he's not looking directly at you, where he can use his super hypnosis unconsciously to make you think that he's a different person than Superman. Anyways, great comic. I love it. To me, it's a classic. Well worth picking up. All right. Issue 40, coming in at number 42 is Action Comics number 507. This is another comic I absolutely love. I was an avid reader of Superman and Superboy, The Adventures of Superboy. Paul Kupperberg was drawing Superboy, and Action Comics at the time was being written by, I think, Andrew Giordano. Pardon me, I don't even know who. I'm not even sure who wrote this, but Kurt Swan drew it. It didn't matter. I was in it more for the stories when I was younger. And what I loved about this was there was a Superboy adventure, because this indirectly crosses over with a Superman story and with a Superboy story. And there was a Superboy adventure where a younger Jonathan Kent, the father of young Superboy, made a wish that one of his wishes is that he always wanted to see what type of man his young son would grow into. But of course, Jonathan Kent dies, right? Jonathan and Martha Kent, they both die in the pre-original Crisis continuity. And so Jonathan Kent dies, never getting his wish to see what his son's life would be like, to see the type of Superman that he would grow into. Well, what happened is that in the Adventures of Superboy, and I forget the issue of Superboy that it is, I have it in storage somewhere, a young Jonathan Kent ends up saving some aliens in an adventure he has with his son Superboy. And as a reward to Jonathan Kent, the aliens say to him, "We promise you, as a way of thanking you, we're going to grant you your greatest wish." And it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful that the wish that they granted him is that they changed reality, they changed time, space to allow an older Jonathan Kent to essentially come back into existence and be resurrected in the future so that he could see and witness his son as Superman. This takes place over 2 issues. It's a great issue. It's very heartfelt. I remember even shedding a little bit of a tear because it was so awesome. I loved it. And it's definitely one of the top 50 sentimental comic books in my collection. Absolutely, for sure. All right, coming in at number 41. Guys, if you've never read American Flag, Howard Chaykin, man, what a fantastic series this was. American Flag was a naughty series. I remember that at the forefront of the direct sale market had just really come into its own. It was in the early 80s, and all of a sudden, this guy named Howard Chaykin comes along with this series called American Flag, and boy, was it naughty. There was sexuality in it. It was adult orientated. This was hardcore storytelling, and it was amazing. Now, Howard Chaykin, I still love Howard Chaykin. I think he's a great guy. I think he's a great writer. I think he's a great artist. I think his art's isn't as good as it used to be, but Howard Chaykin's a controversial writer, and I don't care. He ruffles some feathers because people jump up and down because, God forbid, he offends their sensibilities. In these politically divisive times, people suddenly think that they should throw the First Amendment out the window. To which I have any writer or artist that has that point of view. There was a couple who got upset with Howard Chaykin for another series he did called Divided States of America, to which I boycotted the artists and writers who bitched about Howard Chaykin, and I boycotted their titles. Screw you. Howard Chaykin's a great writer. This was a great series, and he still is, and you should check it out. Well worth it. All right. Now, coming in at number 40 is definitely one of the key issues that are on the speculator list, and this is the Batgirl Batman Adventures number 12. Now, the reason why I'm showing this is I'm being a little bit sneaky here. In fact, the story in here is not very good at all. It's just that I've always collected DC animated series. I've always collected DC animated comic books, and one of the comic books that that I also liked is Batman Gotham Adventures, which I'm sort of cheating here. I'm grouping all my Batman DC animated adventures. There are so many of them that I'm just using this as the embodiment of it, because I love the fact that I just love my animated collection. I got a huge animated collection. I love it. And it's nice to be rewarded that, it's guys, collect what you love. And I collected what I love. And I have to say, isn't it wonderful that what you love suddenly grows in value? Who'd have thought that Batgirl animate or Batman animated number 12 would be the first appearance of a Harley Quinn, and it would be a key collector? Who knows, right? This Batman Gotham Adventures is a cover by Darwin Cook. Darwin Cook is my favorite artist of all time. Darwin Cook, hands down, favorite artist of all time, and I love it. And I got the story that I have about my anime collection. I could go on and on about it, but it's funny that buy what you love. For the longest time, quick story here. For the longest time, I was in my first marriage. We were trying to have kids for the longest time. We were unsuccessful, but it was about a 4.5 year marriage. We're unsuccessful having children. We parted ways amicably, went our separate ways. But during those 4 years, while I thought I was having children, I bought doubles of all the animated comics. I bought one for myself and one for what I thought would be my future child, which never came to pass. Flash forward 14 years later, I ended up becoming a father for the first time with this massive animated collection, doubles of everything, including all the Teen Titans Go, with the pink X and the red X and all these other crazy obscure issues with low print runs. I got doubles of all of them. And that's why that's why it holds such a special place in my heart, is that it came from love, that I not only loved animated series, but it was almost as if I'm calling it into reality, that now I got a beautiful daughter, Audrey. She's 6 years old, and she treats my comics very well. Not particularly interested in reading them, but in any ways, I love telling that story. Okay. So guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little bit of a hint here of some comics that the other comic books that are on the list, but I'm going to stop here. This is my top 50 numbers, essentially numbers 40 through 50. And I'm going to do them in blocks of 10, because otherwise these videos will get too long. So this is obviously ends up being my top 50, particularly issues from issues 50 down to issue 40. And we'll do 39 down to, I guess, 30 in my next issue. So guys, thanks for watching. This is obviously just part one of what will obviously be five videos long. And until next time, guys, thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter at Metropolis40. And until next time, Comic Boom out.